I'd like to first thank the candidates for joining us here today. Anybody that's followed the race up here in Sebastian knows the three incumbents who I'll be introducing shortly. Unfortunately, last night at 5 minutes till 10, I found out that Damien was not going to be able to be joining us today. So I profusely apologize for that on behalf of the taxpayers. It's the first forum in recent memory that I can remember where we haven't had all of the candidates here. You know, it's the old trust and verify thing. I had verified as much as I could. He had told me if he was out of town, he would have somebody in his place speaking for him, that he had the CAPers, the budgets, all the information already laid out. And then, like I said, at 5 till 10 last night, the phone rang, and he said he not only couldn't he make it, but his surrogate couldn't make it either. So I do apologize for all of you here that we don't have all the candidates here, but we do have the three incumbents here, and I promise you we'll have a nice, civil, informative debate, which is what we're looking for today. So I appreciate everybody coming. So with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order for the September 16th meeting of the Taxpayers Association up here at Capt. Butcher's. The basic rules are they're going to each have a 2-minute introduction to introduce themselves to you all, and then we're going to have a series of questions, depending on the time, probably 7 or 8, where they'll each have 90 seconds to answer, and then they'll give a brief 1-minute wrap-up at the end of the debate. Okay? So with that, I'd like to introduce the three candidates to you. They're the three incumbents running for a 2-year term here this year, and they are first, going from my right and then on down, Ms. Andrea Coy. Next to her is Mayor Richard Gilmore. And on his right is Bob McPartland. And with that, we're going to start with you, Andrea, to give the first 2-minute introduction.
Terrific. Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me, and thanks for not having this on a MPO meeting day.
We remembered that.
So that we can all get here in a timely fashion. I really appreciate your comments about being able to talk freely, but I will preface my comments with anybody who knows me, it doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you like it is. I don't care who you are, whether you endorse or not. That's part of who I am. I'm going to tell you like it is, not what you want to hear, but the facts as I know it. Since this is the Taxpayers Association, let me start out with something I think is very appropriate. I pay my taxes. I pay my taxes on time, every time. I have never been delinquent. I have never had a foreclosure. I have never been bankrupt. I've never had a personal bankruptcy or a professional business bankruptcy. And I've been a responsible citizen. So I think that's an important factor for your representatives. I'm going to be, I have been charged over the last 10 years to be responsible for the municipality's money. And if I can't take care of my own house, it's going to be hard for me to take care of $11 million of your money. So I think that's an important characteristic, especially for your group as the Taxpayers Association. Some other things about me. Most of you know who I am. I've been elected 5 times in a row. That could be good, or that could be bad. I have 30 seconds to tell you why that's a great thing. I have been able over time to do some really good things for the city of Sebastian. I am definitely responsible for bringing the college here. And the other thing I think is my greatest accomplishment was the senior center. That has been a great success. It takes time to learn how to get things done. We have a great council right now, and you're going to hear more about it as we speak. There's no reason to change, and I've been told it's time. Zip it, so I will. And more to come later. Here comes Mayor Gilmore.
You can just pass it to Mayor Gilmore. Yep. In front of you, if you would.
Front of me.
Yes. Yep. Don't forget. Thank you.
Not at all.
Well, my name is Richard Gilmore, and I'm currently mayor. As you might know, that we elect every year mayor from the city council. And, you know, in this group, each one of us has been mayor. Bob was mayor before me, and Andrew was mayor before me. And we do have a good group that's working together to make Sebastian a great place to live, work, or play. And I heard something that was interesting to me that from my son-in-law. My daughter said that he's in finance in Dallas, and he read somewhere, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, that Sebastian Vero is number 3 in the nation in increased home prices. And there's a reason for that. I think because we have a stable area, we've done very well government-wise, watching out for the pennies and the dollars. And we have done a good job here in Sebastian of promoting ourselves and promoting Sebastian as a great place to live. We're a retirement community, and we're not ashamed of that. We're a bedroom community, we're not ashamed of that. But I think we do a great job on the waterfront. Anybody that has been here for a long time knew what it used to look like, knows what it looks like now. And this is just one example here, Capt Butcher's, of the great development that's happened here. And I think a lot of that is because we've had a stable municipal government for the last 8 years, and that's important. So stability is good, and if you want to keep it stable, well, keep us all in office.
Here, here.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for having us out here. Kind of concur basically with what Richard and Andrea previously said. I don't want this to turn into a love fest. I was kind of looking forward to hear what was all wrong about Sebastian and what this council was not doing. So if there was any really good ideas, we could look at forming them. But last night, just so, because this is the Taxpayers Association, we had a budget meeting last night. And Sebastian is in excellent financial shape. Just off the top, we have a low debt load. We have a very low sick and vacation accrual by employees, so we don't get on the lam for payouts down the road. We have a very low tax rate compared to the rest of the state. We have an excellent budget process, and we have an excellent credit bond rating for this city. And I mean, this is due to the collaboration that's on the council and everything that is good going along the line. Of course, in addition to being an elected official, I work with the Department of Children and Families. And I take it, my role is more about service above self. And Andrea is on more nonprofits than I can even keep track of. And Richard is very involved with the art community, as well as he's been a real advocate for the lagoon and kind of taken that role. My role is to partner in, because when people say Indian River County, a lot of people just think about Indian River County as Vero Beach. So I've been in collaboration with the school board, with the Substance Abuse Council, to ensure that the initiatives and the programs that they have on there are brought up to Sebastian, so our children can participate in them, that those resources are available for our senior community, as well as our veteran community, as well as all the citizens that we have. So that's what I take on in addition to it. But this is a council that is all involved in the community, as well as handling the city council process. Thank you.
Thank you all. We're going to start with the first question now, and we'll just start with Andrea and again work our way down, and then Mayor Gilmore will get the second question. One of the main large monetary items that's been in the news lately is the Sebastian seawall problem. That's obviously something that there's been price tags floated out there that could range anywhere from $15 million to close to $24 million to rectify. It was also pointed out when this was first brought to light back in January, it's been going on longer than that, but when it was first heard from the city staff, the city manager, Joe Griffin, felt that it was a private property homeowner's responsibility issue and recommended that that's how it be handled, and the council subsequently seemed to overrule that and said that they should be finding the way to fund the money along with grants from the St. John's Water Management District. Like I said, there seems to be 4 different options that are being provided, all at different monetary prices. I was just wondering if you all could speak to those on how you feel, and do you think that the homeowners who have obviously been very vocal about this, that their concerns are being addressed adequately? Yeah.
can rotate, you know, and who starts
Well,
first.
he goes next, that's what I
Oh,
said. We just did the introduction, we're now in alphabetical order.
You really outlined the gist of the problem. Having been around for the last seawall deal, which was 9 years ago that started, almost 10 years ago that started, and turned into a nightmare. It took more than 2 years to resolve the issue, and then we got a new council member and we overturned. We went from rolling grass to seawalls to replacement. It was a long, drawn-out process. I believe we're going to see a long process here, and our last discussion at council showed that. There are only a handful of places that need our immediate attention. Again, there's only a handful of places. Now, if it's your property, you might think it needs immediate attention because it's by your house. But in reality, there's only a couple places we need to deal with within the next year. And we are prepared to do that. We need to discuss a lot more about what we're going to do. Are we going to replace the seawalls? The jury's still out on private property versus is it all city property. We have to go by law. I personally would like to fix it all. I think we have a responsibility to fix the whole thing because it's a unit. But again, there's law involved. We're not done with this. We need to work within our means. We've always budgeted within our means. So we're not going to be putting up $24 million seawalls tomorrow. It's going to take a lot of discussion. And we can do it. We can do it. We're a good team.
It's the same
Same
question.
thing. Oh,
Absolutely.
same question.
Yes, same question on all three of you, yes.
Well, even though I wasn't on council, when we actually, all the discussion about the original seawalls, I did pay attention to it, and I was watching it unfold, and actually was on council when we actually did the installation. So one of the things that I believe we should do, and I voiced this on council, is that you don't have to replace dirt. And 40% of our seawalls are gently sloping ground that goes down into where the ditch is, and where the water flows. I think we should transition to that mode instead of putting in seawalls, because no matter what you do, if you put in a vinyl seawall, it might have a life expectancy of 50 years, it might be 40 years, it might be 30 years, but eventually we're going to have to replace those suckers again 50 years down the road. I don't want to do that, but I do think that it is a integral part of our stormwater, and we do have to come up with a unified vision of what happens when a seawall collapses. And I think our engineer has a great vision of how to accomplish that. We will entomb it and put dirt down in there, and that way we don't have to replace that sucker 40 years down the road.
It's a very complicated question to give only a minute response.
Minute and a half.
And a minute and a half, okay, that gives me a little bit.
Minute 20.
Minute 20, here we go. But I mean, it's kind of the same as Andrea and Richard said. I mean, we had the study done to see what were the seawalls that were needed immediately and the ones over time. And as Richard alluded to, I think we're all kind of in agreement to go with the option entombing them, whereas it's done one time and it doesn't need to be maintained. It's like a roof. You put a roof on, still in 20, 30 years, you're going to have to replace that. Now, the issue about whether it's on the private property homeowner or it's on the city, that runs into a different thing. But I believe, this council can discuss there are options for the private owner. Either the city could afford them possibly a low interest or a no interest loan to take care of that. Because when the seawalls are done, everybody in the city does benefit from that. But then you have to look at, is it all the residents' problem? I mean, the same could be said for people who have the swales. If their driveway is collapsing because the swale wasn't operating appropriately, then is that on the city to replace that driveway? I think not. But I look forward to the discussions that will be coming involving the seawalls. And I know with this collaborative council, as well as the fantastic staff we have Joe Griffin and we have Frank Watanabe, who's an awesome engineer, we will come up with the options and the solutions to this difficult problem.
This question will start with the mayor and then work our way down to Bob and come back to Andrea. As you said, most of the time, and I studied most of the votes, I went through the agendas of the different meetings throughout the year, you all are very often quite unanimous in a lot of your votes, 5-0. One of the votes recently, however, that took place in August was more of a split vote, and that was something that was, I believe, brought up by you, Mayor Gilmore, and it related to the health insurance issue for the City Council. You made it very clear that you would not be taking advantage of the benefit because you're on Medicare, but that you did want to explore the option of whether or not it was a part-time position, a full-time position, that the pay is not that much for the City Council employees for the work that they're doing, and that you felt that health insurance should be put on, and you and Mr. Hill, who were on there, voted yes, whereas Andrea, Bob, and Mr. Adams ended up voting no on the issue. So I was just wondering if you could lay out your reasons again for that, and if the other two could then have a chance to explain their votes.
Sure. Yeah, I think being in business for myself for many, many years and always having to fight to keep health insurance on my family, I know how important it is for someone who is self-employed to secure health insurance, and how hard it is right now to pay for that health insurance benefit. As I said, I wouldn't be one that would be taking advantage of it because I've gone Medicare and I wouldn't need the insurance. But for someone who in the future comes on the City Council, who is working perhaps by themselves as a realtor or some other self-employed type person that's trying to keep insurance on his family, it would be a benefit. It would certainly be a benefit that would be important, I think, to them. Myself, I am retired. I spend what I consider a full-time amount of time doing this job as mayor. And I think both my cohorts will say that when you have that mantle put on you, it puts you into a different classification. You have to go to more things, you have to be more places, do more things, you get more invitations, and it is a little bit more effort to do that than just being a council member. And both of my cohorts did an excellent job when they were mayor. But I think that it's a benefit. Most cities, 90% of the cities in Florida offer that as a benefit to their council members. And I just think that it's just going along with that. I think it's a good deal.
Sean, could you read me the question again? I want to make sure I answer the question, you know?
It was just your position on the health insurance.
Just my position on the health, okay.
Yes.
Well, I guess, you know, the number one thing is, you know, there were some on council, you know, we were not in agreement. But I think the most important thing is we continue to work together. It's like if you agree with me 7 out of 10 times, I say vote for me. If you agree with me 10 out of 10 times, go see a psychologist because you're drinking the Kool-Aid. Now on the issue as far as the health insurance, I have my own health insurance. And the way I looked at it, it had to do with self above service above self. You know, I mean, I get my insurance, but where I could have benefited from the thing was the city also gives a $2,000 EBT card to pay for co-pays and everything along those lines. So if I sign up for this insurance, which would have cost me $25 a month, they would be giving me this $2,000 EBT card, which I could use when I go see my doctor. And
I wouldn't have voted for that.
Okay, well, I mean, that was part of the thing, you know, that I could utilize that. So to me, it was kind of a backdoor way of giving myself a raise, is the way I looked at it personally. You know, I respect everybody's, their opposition and why they were for it. And you know, as also during the meeting, I mean, Mayor Gilmore had mentioned about Andrea, how much more work she does, because Andrea says it was only, you know, a part-time job. But that gets back to this is a position that I think that 3 individuals up here, they kind of live it, and they are always doing it. But as far as, you know, voting for the health insurance, I was against it because it didn't make sense to me. You know, we have other part-time workers that work there. They're not afforded the same opportunity for having that. So, thank you.
Okay, Bob just took most of my thunder. I definitely was not for this. I was very adamant about that. And it's not just because I retired military and I have health insurance. I don't feel I should be voting for something that gives me privileges over another employee in the city. And this definitely would be doing that. I'm a part-time employee. Yes, I put in full-time hours. I belong to, even not as mayor, I go to more meetings. I am active in fundraising and participating in activities in this community. So I put in the full time, but it's a part-time job. Let's face it, when you're only getting $300 salary and a $300 expense account, that's a part-time job. It's always been considered that. So why should I have the privilege of having full-time benefits in a part-time job? I would feel then that I would need to offer it to all the employees on staff, and we can't afford that. In Sebastian, we had for quite a while a really serious problem with some health issues that were costing us a lot of money. Our insurance premiums, we had some unfortunate incidents that we are just finally coming up and out of. So I don't see that we need to expand our pool of people when we are finally coming up and out of some bad problems. I don't think we deserve it, and it's not a perk. I don't see it as being a perk we should be offering to someone to be on city council.
Thank you. All right, Bob, we're going to start this one with you, and then if you'll just hand it down back to Andrea, and then Mayor Gilmore will finish up. We put out questions for our members to ask, and this was by far the #1 question that they just wanted to make sure of where the city was at, only because it has been an issue for a number of years, and that is the drainage system in Sebastian. There's obviously 50 plus miles of drainage ditches here. I know you all put a lot of faith into the new back truck that you all spent roughly $360,000 on that's going to be helping with that project. But we're in the rainy season now, as I mentioned today, obviously, with our, this morning, and it's going to be continuing for the next couple months. And we just hear, like I said, not over and over again. I know the situation seems to be improving somewhat, but it is still something that we do hear from our people about is, where do you feel the drainage system is at, and how much progress do you think has been made, and how much do you think still needs to be made in the future?
Excellent question, John. I mean, as far as the drainage issue, it came up last year when we were seeing some of the things, and we had the quarter-round project, which was going on. And I look at the quarter-round as kind of like veins in the system. But what we had done over the years was we didn't look at the ditches. We kind of put that on the back burner, that we weren't handling those. And the ditches I equate to being the aortas that you have within you. And when the ditches were failing, that was creating a tremendous problem. I live in probably one of the lower ends of Sebastian, and it was a larger drainage issue, more standing water that was out there. But the ditches that we cleaned up in the past year have made a drastic improvement, because also maintaining the ditches and the swales has to do with road repaving. Because if you have the standing water or you have ditches that are failing, it causes the roads to deteriorate more rapidly. So I think the ditches are important. We have done those, as well as the, and it's funny that your members mention that, because the Sebastian, we have initiated a helpline number. Of course, I don't know the number. It's in my phone if anybody wants it, to call the city with the problems where you are. And the city manager and Frank Watanabe and staff are always available to come out and assess the situation and try and improve that. That's one of the other initiatives that we have undertaken. So there needs to be more done with the ditches, the swales. But again, as I travel down through Fort Pierce and then back up home, we don't have the same problem that they do in Fort Pierce. And we are open to all suggestions and trying to improve over the years.
Great.
10 years ago, City of Sebastian didn't have any program for the ditches and swales. I was on council back then, and it was very shortly after I got elected the first time, that council decided it was time for Sebastian to step up and start taking care of that mega problem we were having. Well, it's a problem that's never, ever going to go away. As soon as we get it fixed in one area, something else is going to come. It's one of those things that's going to require constant updating and maintenance. We're getting there. We have put millions of dollars into the ditches, the big ditches, and projects to filter our water and retain our water. We've got this quarter round project that we've had to put on hold to go back and do the ditches. But then that quarter round or another project to get those little, I like the way you put it, with the little veins in the arteries, to get those fit. My house is a classic example. I live at 501 Palm Avenue. Please, on your way home, drive by my house. It shows you that I don't get any special favors in the city of Sebastian, because I have to wear boots to get my mail. I have to wear boots to put my garbage out, because there's some issues. There are major problems there with the swales and the ditches and getting the water from the swales, which in turn have destroyed the roads in front of my house and neighbors. It's an old section of town. Again, this problem is never going to go away. We just have to stay committed, and we have to allocate the funds, which we have successfully done. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, if you go back 10, 11 years ago, when we had the 2 storms hit us, we moved here just in time for 2004 for Francis and then Jean. The water stayed over Barber for weeks and weeks. It was a real problem, and I think that the city has really done a great job of moving water and of taking care of some of the real issues that we used to have. Are we fixed completely? No. But people forget that the swale is there for a reason. The swale is there to allow the water to seep down into the ground. And if we move it too rapidly, it's not going to do its job, filtering that water, keeping it from going into the lagoon. So one of the things we have to remember is that the swales, there's a sign in Indian River County, and you'll drive down the roads and it says, all canals lead to the lagoon. Well, guess what? All your swales lead to those ditches, which lead to the canals, which lead to the lagoon. So we've done a great job treating the water, filtering it, and the swale system is part of that whole system that we have to maintain. And I think we've done a good job of that.
And Bob mentioned that dedicated line. For anybody here that does live in Sebastian and would like to call it, it is 581-0111, and that is dedicated just to any drainage issues that anybody has. So I think
I have that on speed dial.
yes. So that's I think that's why I just want to make sure our members did get it, because it was something that they were asking about. Okay, this question is going to go to you first, Andrea. Obviously, over the last year and a half, almost 2 years now, all aboard Florida has been a big issue up and down the Treasure Coast. Obviously, recently, they did get the bond money tentatively approved for the private activity bonds through the FFDC, but there's been some debate amongst the municipalities, the county, so forth. How you move forward now? Is there more money that should be devoted to trying to still fight and stop the issue? Should there be more attention put maybe to cooperate with the developers to get more concessions with them? And again, how much money should be spent for quiet zones and et cetera, and from out of the county's budget? I see, you'll set aside a certain amount that's going to be appropriated towards that. It looks like $50,000 extra was what was being recommended, at least. So I was just wondering if I could get each of your 3 opinions on that, where you feel on the project. Not in the past, I believe all, I don't want to speak for you if you were in favor of it, but I think from our last debate you all were opposed to it, but where you think the city of Sebastian should be involved going forward on this.
I think you're going to hear a lot of consensus from the 3 of us on this issue, because we've been discussing this for a year and a half. County has allocated $1 million, spent $1 million and allocated another $600,000 towards their efforts. City of Sebastian has taken a slightly different route for the last year and a half. We have been very, very concerned with quiet zones. From day one, our citizens whether there's passenger rail or more freight, we know there's always going to be freight, always. And there's going to be more of it. And that's been a concern. Our residents have been concerned about more freight, passenger rail, all aboard Florida. Two separate issues, but freight will always be there. We are going for quiet zones. We have been. We applied for a grant 2 years ago from the state of Florida, and we were accepted. We still have that money sitting in a pot. I know you read in the Press Journal that nobody on the Treasure Coast has applied for quiet zones. Sebastian is in the process. And as soon as we get the 90-day plan, or the 90% plans, our paperwork goes in and we're going for the quiet zones. We have talked to All Aboard Florida about it. We have talked about it over and over at council. And we are in agreement that we need to look at that and cooperate on that. The money we've set aside, $50,000 this year, $50,000 last year, will go towards any extra money we need to put in for quiet zones. And there's a lot more coming. Go guys, there's more.
Yeah, nobody wants to see more train traffic up here. Nobody wants to see a 100-mile-an-hour train going by their city, and we don't either. There comes a time, though, when you say, well, what do we do about that? Do we continue to fight on? Do we continue to try to do everything we can to stop it when it looks like the deal's already done? Or do we try to say, well, if it does come through, how can we mitigate it? How can we make our citizens safe? And how can we make it so you don't hear the horn blasts? Because I hear them. I wake up 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. I'm 2 miles away from the train, but I still hear the trains as they come through. So we have designated money put aside in our budget so that when we do have the 90% plan from All Aboard Florida, then we can go ahead, pull the trigger for our grants, and go about getting the quiet zones which will protect our citizens. And that's what I'm concerned about, is keeping them safe and keeping it quiet so that we can maintain the quality of life that we enjoy up here.
I mean, short of, Richard is a talented guitar player. Short of him playing guitar on the side of the railroad and me and Andrea holding hands, and Andrea, I'm going to let go when the train comes because I got a lot of kids. I think Sebastian has taken the right approach. We have strongly voiced our concern with All Aboard Florida while leaving doors of communication open to try and talk about the quiet zones. In order for us to, we have the grant money that's there, but we have to petition to become a quiet zone. There are some liability issues that I'm still concerned about and want to know more about going forward. But what we are committed to is making our crossings the safest that they are for the pedestrians. And you know, we've allocated some money, and of course the study hasn't come back yet, and what we're paying $5,000 to $6,000 a year right now for maintenance of crossings, we don't know if that number is going to be $50,000 or $100,000 to maintain the crossings going forward, which is an extremely lot of money. But then again, as I said, you know, we have a collaborative group that sits on the council, but we have an extremely experienced, knowledgeable staff. Not only do we have Joe Griffin, again I mentioned Frank Watanabe, who is an engineer who has worked with high-speed rail when it was initiated in California, and we have made his services available to the county to go through those plans, in addition to voicing any concerns to the federal government, the Railroad Administration, and All Aboard Florida to try and address all the concerns that we have.